Hello there, very good evening and welcome to another edition of Recount Watch. I'm your host, Edghill, and of course, we're continuing on a nightly basis to keep you updated as to the recount process and everything that is happening there. Tonight, I have a full house via Zoom, of course. I have my resident guest, Joe Hamilton. Joe, good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Eddie and Bishop and Marcy. Nice seeing you all, people.
Bishop, Marcy, good evening and welcome as well.
Good night, everybody. Good night, viewers.
So we're into our
Good night to all my colleagues and to all your viewers.
We're into our 7th day of the recount, and I want to share quickly with you before we get into the discussions. I'm seeing coming out of GECOM at the end of day 7, in terms of the count, I'm seeing Region 1, they counted 12 boxes today. Region 2, 9, Region 3, 12, Region 4, 15, giving us a total of 48 boxes for today. I think we're down from about 53 yesterday. So the slothfulness, I think, somehow is being intensified. As at this point, you had 288 boxes counted, or you had 288 statements of return prepared for general and 285 statements of return for regional. I want to get you guys right into the discussion this evening with regards to today's proceeding. Bishop, I'll start with you, followed by Marcy, because both of you were down actually at the location.
Well, I am operating out of workstation 10, and since the recount started, I've been counting votes for region number 4. We could have progressed much faster today. I suspect our station could have gone on to 7 boxes had it not been for the unnecessary delays. We are seeing a transparent ploy by the agents of the APNU AFC to do everything to slow this recount down, and more particularly when certain specific boxes come to the station, it's almost like you're trying to pull teeth. I mean, it's agonizing, it's frustrating, objections without merit, baseless, all forms of shenanigans they're doing. So they're seeking to slow down the process. That is clear in my station. The GECOM staff, they are doing what they ought to do. They have found mechanisms of moving the process faster. There is better coordination among them, and we're getting work done, except for these unnecessary stoppages, including this afternoon a call for sanitization, where we have to wait almost 18 minutes for the sanitization crew to come, 15 minutes for the sanitizing to be done, and when we went back in, we did a box in an hour.
Marcia, let's get you. Let's hear what went on today.
Well, good night, everyone. So just as Bishop might have indicated, well, did indicate, I am working at workstation 8, but I'm also counting votes for region 4. Now, most persons would have known or may know that there was an issue that arose with respect to workstation 8, more specifically this morning after completing a box of 272 votes, which essentially took us almost 4 hours to do. When we had just wrapped up all of our issues, and let me say that the issues surrounded not so much the physical counting of the ballots, but rather the issue of objections and the observation reports and these new rules on a daily basis that are issued to the GECOM staff. We were about to receive our SORs, our copies of the SORs, when the team supervisor came in, well, indicated to the gathering that that he needed our cooperation because there was a report or a complaint made to the medical desk at the convention center about a party agent having a cough. Now, as a result of that complaint or purported complaint, because we have no way of knowing or verifying whether this was an actual complaint. The district coordinator came in and very courteously said to us, folks, you know, your cooperation would be needed for the Ministry of Health's on-venue doctors to come in and perform a COVID screening of all persons within the workstation 8. So, of course, she also reiterated that the screening was as a consequence of someone saying or making a complaint about a party agent having a cough. Now, what ended up happening was that when this occurred, the APNU AFC agent jumped up and started accusing the PPP rep, which would have been me, of making the complaint and basically disparaging remarks about the PPP trying to interfere with the process and trying to hold up the process, which is an absolute lie, of absolute fabrication, because I did not make any such complaint, nor to my knowledge anybody else did that, because we had no reason to do it. And yeah, essentially what ended up happening was we sat there in the station for an additional 40 minutes waiting for the doctors to conduct essentially a COVID screening. And I mean, if you would permit me, that COVID screening basically involved us asking the doctors asking us questions with respect to if we had been in contact with any COVID patients, if we had been presenting with flu-like symptoms, and providing our details as to where we live, if we've had surgeries, if we had any pre-existing conditions, our telephone numbers. And then once they had recorded all of that, they took our temperature again, because for persons who may not know, when you go in the morning, your temperature is tested. So we were tested again, our temperature was taken, and we were also given a breathing test using the stethoscope. And once you did that, and the doctors were satisfied that you did not appear to have any COVID-like symptom, you were allowed to leave.
So that basically, and Joe last night and the previous nights, we have been talking about all the side shows and the shenanigans of the APNU AFC, and every conceivable attempt being made to delay and to stymie the process and to frustrate those present there. Here again, we're seeing another attempt at not only to frustrate the process, but a coordinated and a well thought out attempt to maybe weaponize the COVID-19 during this recount period. Joe.
Eddie, if you note, and following up from where Marcia left off, this is a grander strategy than the one agent at Marcia counting station, because the reports today suggest that Arman has threatened, as the CEO of the COVID task force, that the government might be forced to lock down the country because of the steady increase of cases. The last 4 days, I think, there was an increase of some 12 persons, if I'm following the news correctly. And so we predicted that when all the tactics and strategy that are devious and evil, when they have outlived their usefulness, the ones that Marcia and Bishop, they will know more than I would, because they're there every day, they're having to deal with these people. We predicted that they will seek to utilize the public health dilemma as a political tool. And that is where they are going now, because it looks like every other strategy and tactic that they have applied to slow down and to derail the recount, they have not been successful. So it looks like they have decided that the medical health agenda is now to be put in place. But, you know, I mean, we talk, and we've been talking about these characters since December after the no confidence motion. And I have said this has moved beyond politics to evil, because if you have a government who they're now thinking about utilizing a dilemma that affects and afflicts people as a political tool, this is beyond politics. This is more evil than anything else, and that is where we're at this moment, you know. And we have to look out for more of that being developed around the public health pandemic that we have before us. That is what we have to be prepared for. A couple of days ago, many persons alluded to it when they had this the incident with Timothy Jonas, and people, you start seeing the trend developing. Marcia and Bishop, I would not be surprised that you have more coughing tomorrow at more stations. I would not be surprised, because when the public health people come in and they have to spend an hour, 2 hours, that takes away from the activity of the recount. And so that is what we have to be prepared for. But the nation as a whole is seeing these people now more than ever for what they really are. They have gone beyond being corrupt. They have gone beyond being inept. They have gone beyond being incompetent. They have gone now to being evil people. These are scums. These are not political leaders anymore. It is only scums that would utilize a public health dilemma facing a country for political purposes and political gain. I can't be diplomatic with my language when you're dealing with these characters who are attempting to do this to the Guyanese people, instead of putting in place all the mechanisms that are necessary to control the COVID-19 pandemic. They're seeking to utilize it for evil intents and purposes. The fact that now, Eddie, you have the last 4 days or 3 days, you have additional 12 more persons, and the fact that they have now identified the areas what they call the epicenter and the hotspots, what countries have done is they have gone into those towns, cities, whatever, and they have sought to do testing large scale in those communities. And that has helped controlling it. These people are not doing that. They're attempting to utilize it, as I said, as a political tool to try to slow down the recount activity and to try to derail the recount activity that Granger himself asked for. And that is what we have to now prepare for. Because, as Bishop has said, all the frivolous objections, GECOM themselves, they're seeing it for what it was. And I see the public health angle now being put in motion in the next couple of days to derail the recount.
But Joe, I don't think that the use of this pandemic to derail the process or to bring questions or to cast doubt over the process has now started. Because one could recall the letter that was made public where Mr. Granger himself was named in that letter with regards to the return of the Carter Center and the IRI, where they were using the pandemic there to say that because we have a crisis, we cannot allow you in. So I think this is something that they would have had as part of their plan from the get-go. And talking about the return of the IRI and the Carter Center, I guess all three of you would have read this statement from the bipartisan Congress committee, or the congressmen, and their position that they have taken with regards to the recount process. Who's going to go first? Marcia, you want to go first?
Well, the fact that the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States of America are agreeing on something is a fiat in itself to be celebrated. I'm only embarrassed that it has to be over Guyana and our inability to conduct and complete elections 2 months after actually having the elections. And it really speaks volumes for the fact that a democracy as America, both Republicans and Democrats can come together and say that, look, whatever your issues are, whatever the differences you may have, at the end of the day, in the interest of your people, in the interest of your country's progress, you need to complete the electoral process and ensure that the results are credible. And the only way you can do that is by working without these dilatory tactics to get it done. And I welcome this statement, to be quite frank. I'm very happy to have read it when I came out of Workstation 8 today.
Joe, yeah. So this is a major development. The fact that we have the U.S. Congress, both sides agreeing, and I think it reflects the position of the United States, the UK, and CARICOM, and everyone else, that you need to have the elections concluded in a fair and transparent manner, and that we've already lost more than 2 months. Joe, you go and then Bishop.
No, Eddie, the thing is that the world is watching, and a couple of days ago you had a debate in the Trinidad Parliament where Guyana again was featured. They were discussing electoral matters, and they were discussing, I think they were seeking to amend their Elections and Boundary Commission Act, some aspect of it.
Yes.
And Guyana came in, Guyana is now in the Hansard regarding elections that are not credible or attempt to derail an election. And so everyone is paying attention. And that is the reason why, as much as it is painful every day, because we thought that by the 5th of March, this would have been over and we gone into government and seeking to give service to the Guyanese people. Even though it is so painful, at the end of the day, I am confident this can only end one way, as I continue to say, democracy winning out. The young people of this country will not allow dictatorship to take hold of this country. I am confident about that. And that is the reason why you see they are putting in all this time and this effort. As I said last night, many of them, people included like Marcia, they have put aside their profession, lay aside their profession, people have left aside their business, and some people have even put their family on pause because they recognize how important this matter is. If we allow Granger and this cabal to rig these elections and to tamper with the electoral process and have an illegitimate president and government sworn in, this is the end of us. This is the end of free speech and a democratic culture of this country. And I applaud the young people for recognizing how important this is. And that is why they're standing up and giving it their all every day and every night. Some of them give it every night by going out there and watch ballot boxes, leaving their families, under the protection of God, you know, and they go out there and they spend their time and they give their hours with all this rain that is falling. They're out there in the night protecting ballot boxes to ensure it is not being tampered with. So yes, Eddie, internally and externally, people are fighting, they're rallying, and the cry and the call is democracy, democracy, democracy.
Bishop, I want to bring you in here to get your comments on this, but I also want to give you another issue to examine while you're at it, and that has to do with the return of the Carter Center, which I mentioned earlier is also a concern for the congressman.
Well, Eddie, let's start by explaining that the APNU-AFC coalition government is in desperation mode. They are becoming more and more desperate. Now, pressure could bring the best out of you or could bring the worst out of you. They're under pressure. They have to give up government. They have lost an election. And the fact that they have to give up and they're becoming desperate because they don't want to voluntarily give up power, they're going to do anything and everything within their power to prevent a free and a democratic process from running. Let me speak directly to the Carter Center and what we are seeing now. We have 1 week of trying to figure out what was the problem, why the Carter Center observers could not have joined that flight and come to Guyana and be here in time for the recount. If you have a president who's the leader of his party and leader of the list that contested the elections, that is saying that he wants credible results, at least you will want your international partners, your developmental partners, and by no means the Carter Center should be looked at as some sideshow. The Carter Center has been involved in Guyana's democratic process before 1992, when we had our first free and fair elections. No one could seriously accuse the Carter Center of being biased towards one side or another side. When you read their reports, their recommendations, you know that they mean well for Guyana. They're offering their best advice and pointing to best practices so that we could be able to develop our democratic culture. Now learning, the U.S. ambassador said appeals were made to the highest level. We had requests coming from diplomats from the West appealing that the Carter Center should be approved to come. And then we had the letter from the famous Minister of Foreign Affairs, who should have already left office but is squatting in office, saying and pointing us that that decision was made by the president, so to speak. That shows the duplicity of the president himself. That shows the hypocrisy. People are prepared to speak with forked tongues. Say one thing today, say one thing the next day. I would like to have credible results. I would like to have a transparent process. But then you use everything possible to prevent people from scrutinizing the process. You use your commissioners at GECOM to prevent live streaming in terms of video. Because if people were able to see what was taking place in those counting stations, they would have had a better appreciation as against just hearing. Because you could see the body language, the intimidation tactics that is being used. You have a counting agent in a station, and then you have ministers who are squatting in office, wanting to come in the room to intimidate people, to put in a presence, and they're walking in and out like if they're running the show. And of course, GECOM staff is trying to be as professional as they can be and as courteous as they can be, not wanting to obstruct the process, but they are abusing privilege, seeking to intimidate a process. If the videos were running, the world would have been able to see that. If the videos were running, people would have been able to see the amount of time a ballot box is sitting on a table before you could come to a place of cutting it open. And they'll be able to time 30, 35 minutes of wasted time where a ballot box is sitting on a table to cut because some APNU AFC agent is trying to create a ruckus or trying to create some scene to delay and delay. Transparency is what this coalition government don't want. And I believe the Carter Center has acted in a magnanimous manner when they have indicated that they will now seek to follow all the protocols to come. And I would want to say as a counting agent and a representative of the PPPC, we cannot wait to have more of the international observers in this process. We cannot wait to have more of the international observers in this process because we believe it will bring a serious level of scrutiny and restraint because we still have the likes of Roxanne Myers, who every morning calling GECOM staff to a meeting and every day issuing them with different instructions. And when they become stations, that instruction is contrary to what was done the day before, and it makes a whole new system, and you don't know what to follow and what not to follow. It's almost confusing the staff and confusing the agents. And the central person who's giving those instructions is Roxanne Myers in her morning briefs with the staff. Then the next thing that you would see happening is that after staff would have established systems among themselves and things start moving along, unnecessarily they are moving staff from one station to the next station. So then you have to develop all over again that synergy and a rhythm. So everything is being done to slow down the process. But since myself and Marcia are both in booths that are counted Region 4, we can tell the world that one thing is in common. They don't want those boxes to count, especially those boxes where Mingo has inflated figures. Because from the time those boxes come in, they know those boxes. They have the details in front of them. And that's the time when they start making all kinds of problems. But if you go to the PPP Facebook page, everybody will be able to see what our statements of poll said, that we posted how many months ago. It's 2 months plus we have our statements of poll up. And they're now able to see what the recount figures are showing, which is exactly what our statements of poll showed. I've said to the APNU agent today, could you show me one of Jadbio's fake statements of poll? He can't answer till now. But you're now seeing the fake declarations or the inflated declarations of claimant Mingo. So what they're seeking to do, they can't change the numbers in the box. The numbers in the box are not changing. Whatever the PPPC put out there in their statements of poll, the recount is confirming that those are the numbers. So the PPPC's claim of winning the election by 15,000 or so votes is becoming clear in the minds of even APNU supporters. And the inflated, fraudulent declaration of claimant Mingo is being exposed in front of the whole world. So what they're seeking to do is to change the narrative. And GECOM seems to be facilitating the change of narrative by bringing in how people who migrated voted and people who dead voted. But this is what they're doing. For example, in one station today, they come with 42 serial numbers. And they call up 42 serial numbers saying that they want to object to these 42. But only 2 people from that serial list actually voted. And GECOM don't want to include in the observation report that 44 was objected to, but only 2 was found, because that will show the behavior of the APNU AFC. So the report only wants to show 2 were objected to. But they are coming in there, guessing their way, playing lottery, trying to create situations just to slow down the process and to take away the impact from the numbers. The reason why we are having a recount is to verify the numbers. And while the numbers are coming out to be exactly what the PPPC has put out in the public from the statements of poll that we got from GECOM on March 2nd, election night, it is also exposing the fraud of claimant Mingo in the Region 4 declarations, and they're trying to switch that narrative. So they don't want the IRI here. They don't want the character center here. They don't want people to be able to come into Guyana, and like Joe would have said earlier, to use the COVID-19 situation for political purposes is evil. It's diabolical, it's sinister, it's wicked. This is what you call iniquity. And from the top, and all those who are willingly playing along with the game, all of them, their hands are in this pot of wickedness together, and it must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. They want to change the narrative, but the narrative is the PPPC has won the elections. We have the numbers to show it. And now the APNU AFC is in damage control mode of trying to create a sideshow. But the people of Guyana are not interested in the sideshow. They're interested in the numbers, because an election is won on numbers.
But Bishop, before you go, Marcia, Bishop, you mentioned the numbers. You mentioned the comparison, and it's showing where the Mingo numbers were certainly fabricated and in favor of the coalition. I want to share a few boxes quickly so that people understand the magnitude of what was happening. And these are, I think, boxes from the East Bank. So we're going to go with the ballot box at which covers the Relief Brickery Division. That is the polling station, was the Supply Primary School. Mm-hmm. The statement of poll which the PPP received from GECOM and posted online has 182 votes for APNU. Mm-hmm. Statement of recount has 182 votes for APNU, but Mingo's figure, declared figure, was 292, 110 more than what the votes they actually got. The PPPC in that same polling station got 43 votes based on the statement of poll and based on the statement of recount. But with regards to the numbers from Mingo, it came down to 33. So he took 10 from the PPP. Let's move to Gardner V then, the GDF lecture hall. Here,
I did that box, and there was a big show this afternoon on that box.
I did the one before.
So listen to this. APNU 15 on statement of poll, 50 on statement of recount, but Mingo declared 85 votes. Mm-hmm. With regards to the PPP at the same polling station, 276 on statement of poll, 276 on statement of recount, but Mingo declared 246. He took another 30 from the PPP. Let's move quickly to Friendship Secondary School. APNU AFC on statement of poll, 70. Statement of recount, 71. Mingo declared figure was 170, 99 more. PPP, 93 on the statement of poll. That went up to 96, and I think those are ballots that they consider to be spoiled ballots that you review now when you saw the clear intention of the voter, and they were able to award those votes to both the PPP and APNU. So the PPP, 93, 96 on the statement of recount. Mr. Mingo declared 73. Took another 23 from the PPP. Let's move quickly to, this is the final one I'm going to share, the Craigwood success at the Craig's Nursery School. APNU on statement of poll, 86. Recount, 86. Mr. Mingo declared 140. 54 more votes that they didn't get. PPP, 84 on statement of poll, 84 on statement of recount. He declared 64, so he took 20 from the PPP. He gave APNU 54 more, and he did that. And these are just but a few of the boxes. So, Marcia, and this is what Bishop has been talking about. I'm going to bring you in here now.
Well, just to add a couple of things to what Bishop said. When he was speaking to the body language, I mean, sitting in the polling in a workstation, if you have been contending publicly that you have won an election based on numbers, and this recount will vindicate that, you would think that your agents will be sitting there anxiously trying to have the truth come out. And here you're in the workstations and your agents are YouTubing, the count is going on, and they're on their phones, they're texting, they're not in the least bit interested, not even interested in looking at the PVP votes, not interested in looking at their own votes, not interested, period. And then when you have these boxes coming up, the ones that have the Mingo discrepancies, you can bet and win very clearly that there's going to be some form of delay tactic. It's just automatic. Now, we wouldn't know when the box comes, right? But then the pattern has developed such that now that if there's a box coming up that you will have to look into, the whole modus operandi changes. And for me, my take has been that the narrative has changed. The narrative is no longer that we won these elections, as in the APNU has won the elections based on the number. All that the agents do, they come in with a prescribed list of serial numbers and like a script, and they wait for a particular part in the process, and then they will ask, well, did number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the list goes on, voted? And again, every workstation does it differently. In my workstation, they would just merely call the ones that did vote, right? Well, not vote, sorry. They will say ticked if it has been ticked. And then they will proceed to make an objection, right? I say all of that to say that, to add to what Bishop says, it takes a tremendous amount of time and patience, not only by the GECOM staff, but by everybody sitting in there, including the few observers who are there, local and foreign. And when smaller parties actually ask a question like, well, why is this relevant? Why? They are attacked verbally by the AP and UAFC candidate. They are literally told, why don't you just keep your mouth quiet with your one vote? Or all y'all is PPP minions, or look, I'm surrounded. And these kinds of intimidation acts are prevalent on a daily basis.
I'll bring you in here now, Joe, because picking up from what Marcia would have said and what Bishop would have said, we have had the discussions. So on the evening of March 2nd, on March 3rd, and thereafter, up until about last week, you had Mr. Granger, Basil Williams, the famous video with him in his vehicle, when he said that, oh, we won the elections and the elections were free, fair, and transparent and credible. You had all of them have been singing the same tune of, oh, we won the elections were free, fair, and the elections were credible. Now that we return to the boxes, which will really tell us who won the elections, how the people voted, the narrative, like you said, Marcia, has switched. So the very people who were claiming, oh, we won the elections, this free and fair elections, we're preparing to swear in Mr. Granger for a second term, are now saying, hey, there are irregularities. And I asked the question last night, Joe, I'm going to ask the question again to all three of you. What exactly you won on? Credible, transparent elections, or fraudulent elections?
Eddie, before I go to that, I want to follow on from the numbers you gave to the viewers not so long ago. For them who have not yet looked at tonight, today's activity that Bishop and Marcia, they were involved in. Of the 48 boxes counted, 4 of those boxes were boxes manipulated by Mingo in his fraud, an attempt to rig. And what is so striking when I look at the four? These are four divisions on the East Bank. Garden Eden, Brickery, Craig, Friendship. When you put the numbers together, Mingo was giving APNU 333 votes. 4 polling stations we're talking about. And at the same time, he was deducting from PPP Civic 83 votes. So if you add 333 to 83, Mingo was handing over just 4 polling stations we're discussing here. 416 votes to APNU AFC. And so it's an average of 104 votes
per station
at 4 polling stations we're talking about, just for boxes that were done today as we speak. So people must appreciate and understand the magnitude of this fraud. Because if we go back to election day, when we made available, not just when GECOM rather, made available the 9 districts declaration, the PPP had 152,000 votes, and APNU at that time had 93,000 votes, I think. And therefore it meant they had to increase the amount of votes they had last time by at least 40,000 in Region 4 to pass what the PPP had. And that is when they went into overdrive. Have Mingo and Myers and Lowenfield and Alexander the Grandmaster and all of them seeking to, how do we get these votes? Because you can't make people to vote for you, you know? So they never had the people to vote for them. And so they lost, and now they are in the same dilemma. You cannot change the numbers in the box. You cannot increase, you cannot mingle the box.
I was about to say what Mingo can.
They can't mingle the boxes because our guardians of democracy were paying careful attention to them for the last 2 months or thereabout. So what you do is try to discredit the numbers in the box, how they got there. That is what they're attempting to do. Because they know what are the numbers in those boxes. They have this the statement of poll the same way we have ours. And as I repeat, the same way by 2 o'clock on the 3rd we knew we won, they knew they lost. And therefore, their dilemma was always, how do we say this to our pumped up supporters that we lost this election?
I want to add a quick story here, Joe, because you were talking about the numbers, right? So today, Anil would have spoken to the press and giving his update had indicated to the press that one of the tactics being employed would be to call these serial numbers. And so you ask, did these persons vote, right? Or were they ticked on the list? And a few of those persons or those numbers would be told, no, they didn't, it wasn't ticked. And the response, I mean, I actually witnessed this in today's session alone, and in the last 7 days it has reoccurred, where the APNU agent says to the GECOM staff, you sure? Because according to my information, that person voted, and I have their death certificate here. So GECOM staff, no, that person does not have a tick next to them. Well, you better check again. So it's like almost instructing them to make the answer change when GECOM, no, it's not ticked. There's nothing I can do about that. It's not ticked. Now, I say it because that this afternoon I also saw Mr. Craig giving a statement or answering the press, and he said, oh, it's a figment when the press asked him about calling these persons and insisting that they voted, even though GECOM says, no, they have not been ticked. The response was, oh, that's a figment of Anil's imagination. But we're there. We're hearing it. We're seeing it. I mean, the rest of, and anybody who listens to the audio, I mean, I know it can probably be painstaking, especially when there's those long periods of silence. But if you listen, you can actually hear the shenanigans and the outbursts and the ridicule. And it's not directed only at the party members in the room, but also to GECOM staff, which is ironic.
You know, I saw Craig also. It's heart-wrenching to look at him trying to answer questions. I mean, Eddie, last night I told you that guy used to be the maths teacher of my son at Central. I knew him since then, and I saw him this afternoon. He's attempting to answer some of these questions, the same ones, Marcia, with all of these serial numbers they're calling about all these people. When we were thinking that they had information from Felix, from the immigration, this afternoon Craig is saying, no, we went into the villages and
Yes.
And once the houses were locked up,
It means the people are overseas.
we assume, yes, that the person live overseas. I mean, you know, basically he said that this information to object with came from the villages. That is what he said to the press this afternoon. And so you can't change, and I said last night, all the things they're doing and all the mouth off they like to mouth off, they are yet to make one sound about the information we're putting out vis-a-vis Mingo fraud and the statement of recount numbers and our SOP numbers. They're yet to give a response to that. The person who comes closest is Alexander. He is saying that, listen, he don't see the import of trying to put the statement of recount next to Mingo numbers to do to check
side comparison.
He said that, you know, he don't see yet. He still hold Mingo numbers in abeyance as Claudette Singh voted with them to hold it in abeyance, but he don't see the import of putting the numbers coming out the box, because now we can rest aside, you know, we can rest aside our SOPs for the boxes that are already opened and checked, and just utilize the statement of recount to make our case. And as we continue, I am told, Bishop, that, and Marcia and Eddie, you think Mingo did magic on his back? I'm told the magic is more on the East Coast.
Wow.
I'm told the magic is greater magic when we come to those boxes on the East Coast in those villages. And so we can utilize now, as you know, the SORs to show the fraud that they were attempting on us, the fraud that was directed by Myers and Lowenfield and Alexander and all of that. You know, for the life of me, Bishop, you mentioned this woman, Myers, seeking to counteract the instructions and directions from the commission daily, and they still have her there. There is no, Marcia, you would have more experience in these matters. There is no board in any organization that a deputy CEO can usurp the function and authority of the board and still prancing around in the job? I mean, GECOM is the strangest place to operate. That this woman, I saw says Conrad's commissioner talking about, every day the woman seek to lay aside the commission decision, and when she briefed the staff, she changed the decision totally and still in this job. I mean, it's aggravating that Claudette Singh as chairman one morning couldn't send this woman, give her a marching order. That's the only
administrative leave until the recount is over.
She has some role there, no? Bishop?
Huh?
Her role is very critical here.
Her role is to carry out the wishes of Vincent Alexander and Congress Place. Because everything that Alexander requests and didn't get it passed at the commission, he uses Roxanne Myers through the secretariat to get it. Like, for example, one afternoon we're closing up and they're putting on the doors, no cell phones. That was Alexander's position of no cell phones. The commission never made that decision, but Roxanne Myers is instructing putting up signs. That's just an evidence. But what is worse than all of that? The APNU AFC is so desperate. They are prepared right now to attack the integrity and character of their own agents that work for them on election day. They are accusing their own agents of colluding to allow their people and migrants who are absent from Guyana on that day to vote. Because every time you say, but your agent was present, Watson Myers has instructed that our observation that must be placed in the report that APNU AFC agents were present must not be included on the observation report. Could you imagine that? The PPPC is observing. You are making allegations that their people voted and these people who migrated voted. And we are saying, okay, you're making that allegation, but your own agent was present. They don't want that on the report. Secondly, they're attacking the 15,000 plus hard-working people of GECOM who worked as polling day staff. Because those people had a folio with a picture ID. The people had to be able to be scrutinized. Some form of identification approved of by all the people sitting in that polling booth. All of us who went to vote saw the process. So they're impugning the character of 15,000 Guyanese who work for GECOM on election day. And they're also impugning the character and integrity of the 2,400 or so people that work for them on election day. That's why I'm saying they're so desperate. They don't care who they destroy in this process. And I have to say, like Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad, said, I don't feel too good about this. I'm having a bad feeling because I don't know who else they will attack next.
You know, to add though, Eddie, in previous elections, for example, so everyone is familiar with the concept of the folio. Remember, there was this big uproar about colored folios. Remember, the folio is the list of the OLE, but with the pictures and the bio details of every elector on the list, right? In the past, in previous elections, you would have one with the PO, one with the APO, and then one that is shared by all the party reps who are there. But what we have found during this process is that in the box, in the ballot boxes, you have sometimes 11 copies of the folio. So it means that every party agent who worked at that polling station had their very own picture folio. So they could have identified and verified notified every elector who came in there to vote. Now, to come back and say that these people, and again, I must stress, as I have been trying to stress in every one of my reports, residency is not a requirement to vote in Guyana, right? So now you have these persons, just as Bishop says, you're attacking the integrity of your offices, you're attacking the integrity of the GECOM app, and then you want to disenfranchise somebody who could have very well come into this country to vote and left.
In fact, Marcia, I saw videos of APNU supporters from French Guyana who said it's clear on the internet that we came in to vote. We were in Guyana, but we didn't get back our airfare or whatever money we used to travel to Guyana as we were promised. This is what APNU supporters are saying. So then new people came into this country to vote. I know personally of many persons who I met prior to the elections, days before the elections, who said, hey, I'm back here. I'm here to vote. The problem is, though, and we have to wrap up, but I want to leave this with you to have your final comments, is that I think with all that is happening, all the side shows and the various services that APNU has at various booths at the conference center, one thing is clear in their minds since about the 3rd of March is that they lost the elections. They made attempts to use Mingo and others to hold on to power illegally. They realized that now that we're back in those boxes, the truth and the real numbers are going to come out. And I understand that people starting to pack offices and to remove stuff from their offices. And I understand that based on what is happening, the most confused person in this entire thing seems to be Mr. Granger, who has been singing for the longest while we won and elections were free and fair and credible. And now all the people under him are saying, hey, no. There were irregularities. I'll take your final comments maybe in a minute or so on this, and we wrap things up.
Eddie, again, let me say to viewers, whilst the sideshow will continue, I'm sure about that, let us keep our eyes on the count, because this is what we have. A recount of the ballots cast. Let us keep our eyes on the statement of recount that come daily based on what came out of the box. Whether you had, like I see Craig saying, the folios were not in the envelope they're supposed to be in, that was a major controversy at some station. All of that is baloney. What is fundamental and important is this. Which party gets how much votes at the polling station? That's the fundamental issue here. And we of the People's Progressive Party, Civic, we are confident that we have between 15,000 to 17,000 votes more than APNU in these elections. We are confident and we are sure about that. And therefore, for citizens, I mean, I know you get bellyache, you get aggravated. Some people, you know, who don't use profanity, I'm sure, in their silent moment, even people like Bishop who are men of the cloth, in their silent moment, they use, you know, they don't say it and then they ask God for forgiveness. But the point is we go through all of that all day. But let us keep our eyes on the prize. What is the prize? We want, at the end of the day, this recount to conclude, to finally bring an end to the lies and the misrepresentation coming out from Granger and his cabal, and to finally prove to the people of Guyana, even though they already know that the People's Progressive Party Civic won these elections and Irfan Ali is the president-elect. That is the fundamental issue that we pay attention to, supporters, members, sympathizers of the People's Progressive Party Civic. and all the people of Guyana. Those will be my closing.
Bishop.
Well, my closing remarks will be to tell the APNU and AFC the proverb, the one that digs a hole is the one who's likely to fall into it. The person who digs a hole is the one who's likely to fall into it. They are going to implode with this narrative of attacking everybody, because sooner or later they will have to start blaming them one another, and the implosion is coming. The fact of the matter is we are in a recount to verify numbers. All the afternoon briefs and the Facebook posts and the spinning and the propaganda, the people ain't interested in that. They're interested in them statements of recount, to compare it alongside statements of poll, to compare it alongside Mingo's declaration, and to get a final total. And GECOM better had behaved in a responsible and proper manner, because hundreds of thousands of Guyanese are following this process every day, and they know to count, and they know that 33 is the majority of 65. So people in Guyana and those responsible at GECOM better have act in keeping with their oath to uphold the Constitution of Guyana and ensure that we have free, fair, and credible declaration of these results. We all know, like Joe said, Irfan Ali is the president-elect, and the sideshow must stop. We need one bold, brave soul from the government. It might be Granger when he wakes up in the morning to come out and say, stop the charade. We know we lost. Let's get this thing moving. But the hypocrisy must come to an end. So that's what will be my closing remarks.
Marcia.
Those are big shoes to follow, gentlemen. But look, in addition to everything everyone else has said, elections have been and continue to be there will be a winner, or the population coming together and choosing a party who they believe should govern this country. In 1992, we saw the return of democracy to Guyana, and most of my age group and now the younger generation coming up and everyone before fought in a struggle, and that struggle unfortunately is continuing now. But don't lose hope, because democracy is always restored. It takes a little longer, yes. In this particular election, it took a little longer than everyone anticipated, but make no mistake, there has to be a winner. The PPPC has maintained that it won the elections fairly, credibly. It has the numbers that represent the will of the people. The recount is merely going to verify and support a position that we have maintained since the 5th of March, when Mingo made his first false declaration, and we were forced to load our SOPs for the world to see that we were not making this up. We were not making up or had a dream that was unfulfilled. The reality is the masses spoke on March 2nd, and they chose to elect Irfan Ali, Dr. Irfan Ali, as its president, and Brigadier Mark Phillips as its prime ministerial candidate, and the PPPC back into government. We need to get on with the business. We don't need to go on with an audit. We need to count those numbers, make those numbers stick, and get on with it. With regards to COVID and all, unfortunately, Guyana needs to brace themselves or itself for, again, more of the COVID measures being weaponized and used against all, not just the PPP, because it's not only the PPP at the front lines. There are other parties who are there, not because they're supporting the PPP or because they like the PPP. They are there because they themselves have satisfied their own conscience and their own principles that the elections were done, the people spoke, and the people chose to elect the PPP. And they are fighting to make sure that that will is also given a reality too. So that would really be my closing, but to also add that myself and the rest of the PVPC team who are working at the convention center on a daily basis, we will continue to do so until this process is over and done with, and until we can restore democracy to Guyana.
Marcia, Nadir, Sharma, Joe Hamilton, and Bishop Juan, Edghill, I want to thank you guys very much for joining me this evening. And of course, to our viewers, we want to say thank you so much and have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks for having me, Eddie.
Bye for now.